up, everybody?
What's going on? Welcome.
Are you all doing? Welcome to our November 17th Daily Gaming News Show. I am Kaisa.
I am Marrone, and welcome to the Daily Gaming News channel here on Twitch as we take an hour out of the day to talk about everything going on in the gaming industry.
We are super excited to get back into our week. How was your week, Marrone? How's your weekend?
Busy, been super busy nonstop. The weekend was great. Went and saw some locations for the film and just gearing up for the next weekend when we start, and then trying to find the downtime when it exists. What about you?
Mine was good. I thought I was going to play Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but it turns out that with my CPU, I had to install the CPU before like November 9th for me to actually redeem the game. And I was just like, okay, I guess I can't redeem it. It was super weird.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What? What kind of rule is that?
Yeah, how do they know if it's installed? I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was super weird. I thought it was just like, oh, you buy the CPU, you have the game, sure, whatever. But no, I had to install it, so I don't know. I'll figure that out.
Bummer.
Yeah, I guess I'll just have to buy it. I don't know.
Who do we complain to? Who do we complain to?
Can I please complain to someone? Also, thank you so much, Kai, for the tier 2 sub for 5 months. Thank you so much, Kane, for the 5 months resub as well. We appreciate you. Welcome everyone in the chat. And Ray Skywalker for the 5-month streak as well. Thank you, thank you.
You guys are all awesome. We love the DGN family. Thank you so much for being a part of this process. We have some really awesome news to jump into today. Starting off, one of the ones we're going to talk about out the gate is how Sony needs to fix an issue where the PlayStation 5 games are defaulting to the PlayStation 4 versions.
Yikes. Then we're going to get back into the Fortnite legal drama as a judge tosses Apple counterclaims against the Fortnite maker Epic.
We're also going to be talking about this really cool article that came out of the University of Texas at Dallas as some computer scientists have launched a counteroffensive against video game cheaters.
Xbox CFO talks Bethesda Exclusivity, saying we want Bethesda content to be first or better or best on Xbox platforms.
We're also going to be jumping in and talking about the PlayStation 5 system update, which is out, and we have some details regarding what that update is.
We're also, if we have time, going to cover PUBG Mobile and how it has plans to relaunch in India after some Tencent and China drama.
There's another story that came out that is a Resident Evil 8 leak of a bunch of details after a Capcom ransomware attack happened.
Which is wild. And then if we have time, we're going to discuss what we think about the launches. And as always, the PS5 and Xbox Series X launches. And as always...
What's in the mug?
I am in Massachusetts now. I apologize. I hear leaf blowers. People have been leaf blowing all day, and usually these are just summer homes with no one there. But everyone's decided to quarantine on the Cape, and I'm like, now it's busy, and everyone's blowing their leaves around. I'm like, I thought no one was supposed to live here.
You damn leaves.
The leaves.
Well, let's jump right in and talk about this wonderful hiccup, of course, with a launch system, as we would expect, as Sony needs to address a problem where people who are buying PlayStation 5 games are somehow defaulting to PlayStation 4 versions.
The backwards compatibility capabilities of the PlayStation 5 is pretty impressive. Fire up the console, sign into your PlayStation Network account, and navigate to the library screen, and you can see, download, and play nearly every single PS4 game you own in a digital format. It's kind of amazing being able to access an entire generation worth of games on a brand new machine without any difficulty. But while backwards compatibility at a moment's notice is nice, the user interface gets more confusing when you're trying to actually download a game that's available with both the PS4 and a PS5 version, and it's actually pretty annoying.
So, if you've got a game like Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales that's available on both consoles, you can choose which version you want to download. For some reason, though, the PlayStation 5 consistently defaults to downloaded PS4 versions of cross-generation games when they appear in your library. It's something that seems likely will be patched, because there's a very good chance that if you're not careful, you might end up playing the last-gen version of a game of some of the biggest next-gen games on the console right now.
I'm gonna turn on my gain and just try to talk really loud because of these leaf blowers. So highlight a cross-gen game in the library tab and you'll almost always see the PS4 version and not the PS5 version. At first glance, although this fact is not made clear at all, you have to hit the button with the 3 dots that appears when you select a game in order to pull up a menu where you can choose between and download each version, but it's not at all obvious that this is where you need to go to look for that information, and you can't tell which version you have selected until you open in that menu. A lot of times, if you just hit download on a game, you're gonna learn only later on that you've actually installed the wrong version, and then you have to delete it and start all over again.
Yeah, so the interface has issues even after you download games, though. On the PlayStation 5's home screen, you're going to see the last few games and apps you interacted with spread across the screen. And repeatedly during pre-release testing, there were PlayStation 5 games that were already played switching over to the PS4 versions on the home screen, which means that the next time you go to select a game that has switched over, you're prompted to start a download of the PS4 version rather than just start playing the PlayStation 5 version. It seems like this issue might be tied to the games getting automatic updates. But again, if you're moving quickly through the UI, you can start a download accidentally that you then have to deal with deleting. And if you have both versions of a game installed, it's very easy to start the wrong one and not actually realize it.
It's possible to switch between versions of a cross-gen game with the options button from the home screen menu, but frankly, it's a weird pain to expect to launch a game and accidentally start a download. It's also just a strange quirk that the PS5 seems to favor last-gen versions of games over the current ones, and it's possible to see how accidentally downloading the wrong versions of games could be troublesome to people who have data caps on their internet service or are hurting for space on the PS5's internal SSD, where PS5 games must be installed in order to run.
Thank you so much for the bits, Bad Axe, and everyone else. What is up? It's good to see you, Malice. Welcome, welcome. And, you know, this is important. You know, essentially, it's a PSA. I mean, double check your PlayStation 5 games before you start that download. Make sure you're getting the right versions. It is completely possible to download and fire up the wrong version of a game on Sony's new console and miss out on all the benefits of increased power. And hopefully, sometime in the future, this is going to be something that PlayStation 5 owners won't have to double check every time they go to download or play a game.
Honestly, I would be so annoyed if this happened to me, because for some people have pretty slow internet, or, you know, there's a lot of people at home, it takes a long time to download something, and if you've already waited like 2 hours maybe to download something and then you have to delete it and reinstall it, I just think it's really strange and an oversight that it automatically downloads the PS4 versions over the PS5 ones.
I couldn't agree more, because when you're using that PlayStation 5 system and you're purchasing a game that's there is a PlayStation 5 version of that game, it should be automatic.
Right.
You know, not the other way around, that it defaults to the PlayStation 4 ones. Because it's really unfortunate that you would have this situation where you're about to like try to have this wonderful experience. Think of like Spider-Man. You're going to jump into Spider-Man, you're going to have a really good time, and then all of a sudden you're like, but these loading times are crazy. It's like this isn't supposed to be this slow, and why am I not actually getting that visual upgrade that I thought I was going to be getting? Is something wrong with my system?
That's a good point. I feel like my first instinct would be like, oh, this actually doesn't look that much better on the PS5. Like, wow, kind of a scam. Like, I paid for the next gen thing and it like doesn't even look that more impressive than the PS4. I think it would actually take me like a while to figure out that it wasn't, you know, the latest version, because why would I assume that?
Yeah, that's such a strong point too. Like, why would I assume to hit the drop-down tab in order to ensure that's the PlayStation 5 version? I wouldn't.
Yeah, no.
Because I'm downloading from that console, I would expect it would be tied to that console. This is like that story of the people who had put PlayStation 5 discs into PlayStation 4 consoles, but now this is kind of like the opposite, where it's a digital download, just giving you the PS4 version instead of the PS5. You're like, what's going on here? Why is this happening?
Oh my gosh, so strange. And we're gonna get into more PlayStation news later, and I wanted to tie in with that later story that I've been seeing tweets where I guess with this new update, it deleted this streamer's, so a streamer, Kaljeet, played Demon Souls for 6 hours. PS5 forced an update and it deleted all her save progress, and she has to start it all over again. And I'm just like, that sucks. Like, between that, downloading the wrong versions, there's been a lot of bugs. I mean, it's already just hard enough to get your hands on a console as is, and it kind of reminds me of Kai's comment to my tweet earlier about $70 games, where it's like, if you're gonna pay a premium for a game, you expect it to work perfectly. And so I'm thinking the same thing for, like, sure, like, I think it's okay that it's not running perfectly, but if you're gonna have a high price point, it better work perfectly. I don't think you can have a really high price point and also botch everything at the same time. That just sucks.
It does. There's no way. There's no way you're paying a premium and not getting the premium treatment.
Yes,
I mean, come on. Like, no. And the other thing too that I'm I haven't turned my PS5 on in a few days.
Really?
Part of the reason I haven't done that is not just being busy, but I've also been like, I feel like there's a lot of bugs that I'm afraid to like possibly interact with. Where if I have that situation that you just described with the Demon Souls save, other people have been talking about how there has been issues with like crashing the system entirely by using the external hard drive to play PS4 games, issues just with games crashing and locking up and possibly causing the full, reset. So I've just kind of been in that phase. I'm like, maybe some firmware updates need to come out before I'm having that headache of investing 6-7 hours into a game, turning around being like, man, I have to play through this again.
Yeah, honestly, that's so awful that you have the console, you're looking forward to it and you're not even using it because it's so buggy that it's like, is it even worth playing it right now? Should I just wait a little longer, until it actually is like, has all the, the edges smoothed out first? The
controller is like where you want to come back. I got to admit, like those reviews saying that the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller is what is really just like is a huge game changer. And it just makes you want to like always experience games with that controller. But there's also just the area of like, I love the controller. It's so much fun to explore that. And the Astrobot game is a wonderful way to get that feedback. But I'm going to wait a little bit until I feel like some of these game breaking and system breaking bugs are ironed out right now.
I feel like I need to read like a blog or like a guide to be like, okay, so you set up your PS5 to be like, make sure you don't download the PS4 version. Like, make sure you set this up instead. Like things that should be very intuitive, things that should be very easy. But it seems like there's all these like weird like intricacies with it just that are due to bad design.
Yep, it's 100% the reality, and we'll jump into the update a little later on and talk some more on that. But I think there's a few more updates ahead to resolve some of these problems. So be on the lookout, PlayStation 5 owners.
Also be on the lookout, Apple, as a judge tosses their counterclaims against Epic Games.
So this actually is something that's really interesting. And this is the same judge, the U.S. District Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers, who we've talked about before, overseeing this. So late Tuesday, Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers dismissed 2 counterclaims by Apple against Fortnite maker Epic Games in the popular online game maker's antitrust lawsuit challenging Apple's practice of taking that 30% cut on all in-app purchases. And the Judge Rogers ruled Apple has no basis for its demand of punitive damages.
Epic Games sued Apple and Google after the tech companies kicked Fortnite off their app stores due to an ongoing dispute over commissions. The legal dispute began when Epic encouraged its users to pay it directly for in-game upgrades instead of using Apple, which earns a 30% commission on all app payments through its app store. That policy is at the center of several lawsuits by app developers who claim Apple is using its app store to exert monopolistic power over the market.
Apple countersued for breach of contract, claiming Epic is trying to circumvent the App Store's rules to avoid paying millions of dollars in commissions. Apple says it's owed for sales of Fortnite content. And according to Apple, Epic breached the contract by launching its own in-app payment systems.
In its counterclaims, Apple also accuses Epic of intentional interference with prospective economic damage and conversion. In a motion for judgment on the pleadings filed in advance of Tuesday's hearing, Epic said a judgment dismissing these claims will ensure that the case stays focused on the validity of Apple's agreements and practices. These are the issues on which Epic claims and Apple's contract-based counterclaim depend.
And so on Tuesday, Judge Rogers told Apple's attorney Anna Casey, the tech giant, is on the losing side of this. I don't believe you have a tort action here. I said it before and I'm saying it again today. Gonzalez Rogers iterated this. Now, as for Apple's intentional interference claim, Judge Rogers told Casey, you can't just say it. You actually have to have the facts that support it, and you don't.
The judge also said Apple failed to show ownership or right to possession as required for a conversion claim. Casey compared Epic to hackers and said that the game company, quote, has funds that should be in Apple's possession. Epic has abused funds that should be in Apple's hands. But Gonzalez Rogers, the judge, noted that Apple doesn't own the funds, which belong to Epic. Apple is only entitled to a 30% cut.
And she added, the 30% is in dispute. And this was at a hearing last month. Gonzalez Rogers refused to reinstate Epic's Fortnite game on Apple's App Store. Now, the case is expected to go to trial sometime next year. Casey and John Caron, Epic's attorney, didn't return email requests for comment by press time. And a spokesperson for Apple said in a statement that the company believes Epic's conduct should be actionable under California tort law.
The statement continued, "It is clear, however, that Epic breached its contract with Apple. In ways the court described as deceptive and clandestine, Epic enabled a feature in its app which was not reviewed or approved by Apple, and they did so with the express intent of violating the App Store guidelines that apply equally to every developer who sells digital goods and services. The reckless behavior made pawns of customers, and we look forward to making it right for them in court next May."
Okay, so I've got to give some credit. I remember when we went back and we heard Judge Rogers kind of talk on this at first, we were like, does she understand the aspect here of this relationship? Because that whole initial, not reinstating the app on the App Store and that being in contest. But now the way she's handled Apple's counter has been really informative to like, okay, this is a pretty sound judge in terms of how she's looking at the facts, because Apple's claim is ridiculous when you really break it down, that they're claiming they're owed money from Epic that Epic is getting for its game. And that the thing that's really had to like remind them the thing that's in dispute. And this whole, I love this line. You can't just say it. You actually have to have the facts that support it, and you don't.
Yes, Judge Rogers. We were totally kind of ripping her apart like a few months ago because of the whole like walled garden definition of some of these companies, and it was kind of like, oh, well, on an Apple iPhone, Apple owns everything that's on the phone, and it's like, but does it really? I feel like in this day and age, it shouldn't really be that way anymore. But now her just kind of shutting down Apple here, saying you don't have a case. I'm not a lawyer. I have no background in law except watching a lot of How to Get Away with Murder. So I don't know how strong of a case they have, but I think it's funny and kind of great that she says that Epic doesn't owe them the money lost for honestly breaking the contract. I mean, it was a manipulative contract, I think, and I know to an extent if a contract is just like too ridiculous, it won't actually be upheld in courts, even if you signed it to an extent. So it's kind of cool to see the judge just being like, nah, it wasn't your money, like it was just a cut of the money, like it's not yours.
Yeah, and it's funny because like Kane just goes, so basically Apple just wants more money, and Epic was like, nah. I mean, when you look at this, they say and try to make that claim there, and it's like, well, no, we're here to discuss this 30% thing, which hasn't been ruled in either direction, and that's a thing to understand, at least for us as we're examining this case and it moves forward, is like the big fight, and it is the only fight. Is this, do they deserve 30% on all in-app purchases? And that's where I think when I hear this counterclaim coming from Apple, is it's just so on the nose in terms of greed and what they think they are to the gaming industry, especially with Fortnite being the subject matter of this specific conversation on iOS. It's like, no, you understand you're not anything other than the platform that houses it for this specific version of the game's iteration. That doesn't entitle you to more.
No, and it seems like that's what Apple thinks. They're like, okay, so we made this phone and we made the App Store, so we get to make unlimited money forever off of everything on the App Store. And it's like, do you realize how ridiculous that sounds? Like, I understand what you're trying to do, but like, do you are you listening to yourselves? Kind of thing here. I really wonder what's going to happen with this case, because this 30% cut, I assume, is going to apply to like the Google Play Store or literally any other kind of app store that exists, because this is going to set a precedent if they can, charge, that much of a fee or a fee at all, or, how that works, how they're going to be able to make money. And, who owns this money? It seems like the judge is signing on the fact that, Epic is making the money, Apple is not owed to it, which makes me think that they're going to rule, in Epic's favor here, even though Epic did technically breach the contract by, having a direct link to buy V-Bucks through Epic itself and not through, Apple. Yeah,
that might be the area where maybe we might see some, action taken against Epic in this ruling, but of course it's an ever evolving, living, breathing situation. So we don't know what the next, report is going to be surrounding this case. But I think one thing that we are realizing is that this will and is setting a precedent from this decision forward. Once this is set in stone and it's ruled, we're going to see the type of ripple effect it's going to have on the gaming industry. And it could mean, I don't want to think ahead like this, but it could mean that you see places start taking their content off the Apple Store if it does get ruled that, yeah, they deserve that 30%. People just might be like, well, I just don't want you to have my game.
Right? I think so. Maybe they're going to be like, well, this isn't really worth it. I'm going to figure out, something else to do here. A 30% cut is huge, especially because, people still have to pay taxes on top of that. Like, taxes are usually 30%, and 30% is taken out by Apple. And then you have to cover costs of doing business. And then do you have money left? I don't know.
That's a great question.
Which is why, I don't know. It's just wild. This 30% cut is just so huge for it being, something that's not taxes that you also have to pay on top. I really hope this gets kind of squared away here. I also just want to touch on Kai's comment that you said you bought a I don't know if it was a PS5 or an Xbox.
Got the PS5.
PS5 and said it arrived yesterday, but you didn't have the energy to open it. You also have no games and no 4K TV. That makes me so sad. I think you should still be excited over your PS5, even though we have kind of been ripping on it.
Absolutely. I have one. I'm right there with PS5 buddies, Kai, and anyone else that's got it. So don't you worry. We'll be having our games and 4K experiences in no time.
It will be up and running very, very soon.
Well, one of these stories that we're jumping into is really cool because this kind of gets a little, I don't want to say, this gets a little specific in how this could work, but there are computer scientists out of the University of Texas at Dallas, and they have devised a new weapon against video game players who cheat. And now the researchers developed their approach for detecting cheaters using the popular first-person shooter game Counter-Strike. But the mechanism can work for any massive multiplayer online game that sends data traffic to a central server, and this research was published on August 3rd.
Counter-Strike is a series of games, as many of you know, in which players work in teams to counter terrorists by securing plant locations, defusing bombs, and rescuing hostages. Players can earn in-game currency to buy more powerful weapons, which is a key to its success. Various software cheats for the game are available online.
So one of the computer scientists, Shihabul Islam, said sometimes when you're playing against players who use cheats, you can tell, but sometimes it may not be evident. He went on to say that in the Eric Johnson School of Engineering and Computer Science report, he said he was the lead author and study who plays Counter-Strike for fun. And he says it's not fair to other players. And in addition to fair play, cheating can also have an economic impact when dissatisfied players leave to play other games.
Cheating incidents also can have serious consequences in esports, a fast-growing industry with annual revenues close to $1 billion. Cheating can result in sanctions against teams and players, including disqualification, forfeiture of prize money, and a ban on future participation, according to the Esports Integrity Commission based in the UK.
Detecting cheating in MMO games can be challenging because the data that goes from a player's computer to the game's server is encrypted. Previous research has relied on decrypted game logs to detect cheating after the fact. Now, the UT Dallas researchers' approach eliminates the need for decrypted data and instead analyzes encrypted data traffic to and from the server in real time.
So Dr. Khan, an author of the study, professor of computer science and director of the Big Data Analytics and Management Lab at UT Dallas, said players who cheat send traffic in a different way. We're trying to capture those characteristics. For the study, 20 students in the UT Dallas class Cybersecurity Essentials for Practitioners downloaded Counter-Strike and 3 software cheats: an aimbot, which automatically targets an opponent, a speed hack, which allows the player to move faster, and a wall hack, which makes walls transparent so players can easily see their opponent. The researchers set up a server dedicated to the project so the students' activity would not disrupt other online players.
So the researchers analyzed game traffic to and from the dedicated server. Data travels in packets or bundles of information. The packets can be different sizes depending on the contents. Researchers analyzed features including the number of incoming and outgoing packets, their size, and the time in which they were transmitted, their direction, and the number of packets in a burst, which is a group of consecutive packets.
By monitoring the data traffic from the student players, researchers identified patterns that indicated cheating. They then used that information to train a machine learning model, a form of artificial intelligence, to predict cheating based on patterns and features in the game data.
UT Dallas has earned a reputation for incredibly bright students, innovative programs, a renowned faculty, a dedicated staff, and engaged alumni, and the research that matters.
The researchers adjusted their statistical model based on a small set of gamers to work for larger populations. Part of the cheat detection mechanism involves sending the data traffic to a graphics processing unit, which is a parallel server, to make the process faster and take the workload off the main server's CPU.
So the researchers plan to extend their work to create an approach for games that do not use a client-server architecture and to make the detection mechanism more secure. Dr. Islam said gaming companies could use the UT Dallas technique with their own data to train gaming software to detect cheating. If cheating is detected, the system could take immediate action.
Khan says after detection, we can give a warning and gracefully kick the player out if they continue with the cheating during a fixed time interval. Our aim is to ensure that games like Counter-Strike remain fun and fair for all players.
What a solution that no longer requires you to have to download the easy anti-cheat, all the other, Watch Eye, Battle Eye, all these things that aren't as effective, but it just studies the data, the information being sent from the computer to the central server, and analyzing that, it detects the pattern and goes, undoubtedly this person's cheating. I can see it. There it is.
Right, there it is. And I think that this is a great, step forward in cheat detection. There are so many ways to detect cheating. We talked about how in Warzone, even looking at someone's aim percentage or aim accuracy percentage and looking at their KDA, you can already kind of detect a lot of cheaters through there, but that's not entirely accurate. And I love how this is just a total kind of impartial, objective way to be like, it's just the packets that you're sending. Me playing differently, I don't think that's going to affect the packets that are sent, but if I'm using a program, I could see how that can directly affect it. And I think that this could, even be a more accurate way to detect cheaters. I was playing Among Us, and one of my friends was kicked for a game that she was just about to clutch a win as imposters, and she got kicked for cheating in Among Us, and she was just like, I was playing the game. Everyone's like, oh, you just must be too good, haha. But it was just like, what triggers did she set off for Among Us to think she was cheating if she was just really playing the game organically? To have something that's more objective and that's not even analyzing gameplay, I think is a great step forward.
Absolutely. This also eliminates the reporting people. It's like, oh, you're going to report and you're going to do that and hope that it gets seen. You have an AI that its purpose is to study the information as it comes through. A player is doing something that is noticeably, the pattern of the information that I'm studying is enough to say that that individual is cheating, and we will warn them. And if the behavior doesn't change, we'll just go ahead and kick them. I mean, this is the same as doing a blood test. And this someone was mentioning it in the chat, that this is an area where we need this for esports on this big level, because this you can't get around this. There's no disguising this behavior. There's no taking something out of your DNA when they draw blood, and go for it, unless you're going to a really big extent of paying people off. You're essentially Lance Armstronging the aspect of the sport you participate in. That's such a rare occurrence, which is why I get so much attention when it happens.
That's so true. To be able to fake this, I feel like would be just kind of so extreme that this is kind of an easier way to really detect that. Chat says cheating in Among Us exists. Cheating in every game, you could say. Some people, they download cheats so they're always the imposter, for example. In Among Us, things like that. I don't know if there's a thing that auto-completes
team-based
tasks.
Party game.
I know, it's so stupid. I also think this is, as you touched on, this is definitely needed because some anti-cheat software that we have is already, so invasive. Chat says, please no more easy anti-cheat. I mean, Valorant's Vanguard, having kernel level access to your PC. I don't want that. I have sensitive documents. I have legal papers and things I don't want to be accessed by, anything besides myself, to have just kind of a program program that you download for a game, you know, that's going to have so much access to your computer is just so invasive and so unnecessary.
I think, and what you just said is part of the reason why I think there's a huge drive for this, and that these individuals at UT Dallas are really putting this forward. Let's remember something in a parallel of when movies started to become readily available at home. There was always the warning on a VHS. For those who remember VHS, there was always a warning in the beginning that indicated if you copy and you sell this, whatever, you know, you'll be pursued by law. And then once it went to like DVDs and digital, that watermark actually happened in a digital way. So the moment you burned it or copied it over, it traced and knew that's what happened. It was a trail that continued with it. So they could always trace it back to who has it. This type of technology with cheating is like that development when the movie industry was trying to figure out how do we protect our content transferring over digitally, and there was this development in that space. I think that's what we're seeing here with gaming. How do we develop something that is going to probably become like a permanent position within especially MMO gaming and esports? That's
so true. To, you know, have these things, you know, on the back end that can be tracked and can be traced. I love chat. I thought of the same thing. You wouldn't download a car of how it kind of reminds me of just even like images. Like someone might post a photo to, let's say, like Reddit on like a throwaway account, and they'll post the photo and I'll have no identifying features, but you can go into like the metadata of that image and you can see the like location or the date it was taken, or there's a lot of information there that you don't, you know, see up front, but is still associated with that. So be careful of the photos you post, by the way. But, you know, having that kind of watermark, or having, you know, a way to really like trace the user, trace where the data is coming from, trace if all the data, you know, is from the actual game, or if there's, you know, other things installed, you know, I feel like is definitely the next step.
This is so exciting. I'm so happy for this development.
Me too.
When I saw this article, I was just like, oh, someone is trying to solve this problem.
Yes.
Somebody, I mean, this year, let's be honest. This year has been the year of cheaters in video games.
Yeah.
It's been huge. It's been all over the place. We've been seeing it out of the coaches from CSGO. We've been seeing it within the esports community. There's just been all this stuff occurring. Streamers are getting caught with it. I mean, it's just nonstop. It's all the time it's happening. And I think just people being home and just trying to find a way to get around it, and it becoming such a, it's like the MMO industry is on fire with cheating. And some people are like, either I'm just going to get burned by it and hate it, or I'm going to engulf my own flame to fight against it, you know, fight fire with fire. There's just all this aspect of it that it just, there's a solution to just put it out. And I think this is that solution. And I'm really excited by seeing this become a widespread application.
Me too. And thank you so much, Kai, for the $50 donor. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you,
Kai.
This also just makes me think of, you know, how people are always like 100 years from now, we won't know what jobs there will be. Like you could have a job as like a cheat detector, as like a computer scientist for video games.
Yeah, you just show when you've got a clipboard. Yes, we've been notified of you cheating. Here's your ticket.
Here's my badge. I'm a computer scientist.
Yeah. I'm here to issue you a summons for cheating. We have proof.
So funny. I think that's really exciting. If anyone's studying computer science or you know, wants or is interested in cheaters or wants justice on the internet, you know, this is definitely an industry, you know, you could get involved in. It's
where the reality show Cheaters comes back, but it's not about spouses cheating on each other. It's about cheaters in video games.
Blind Squirrel says, I work with big data, but it's not this exciting. I'm sure on the back end it's kind of all the same thing, but at least you could say you're doing justice.
Yes. Serve that justice, Blind Squirrel.
So our next topic is about Bethesda's exclusivity with Xbox and how the Xbox CFO says we want Bethesda content to be first or better or best on Xbox platforms. Yeah, so now that we all know Microsoft purchased Bethesda, many are wondering whether whether or not upcoming and future titles will still be released on other platforms, including that of Sony and Nintendo. Now, there was a Jefferies Interactive Entertainment virtual conference, and Microsoft's CFO for Xbox, Tim Stewart, addressed this matter. Microsoft and Bethesda haven't directly confirmed that going forward, upcoming titles from Bethesda will be exclusive to the Xbox platform. Bethesda's Todd Howard has said that they will decide what makes the best sense when the time comes, and Xbox head Phil Spencer pointed out that Microsoft isn't about keeping games away from other platforms, but on the other hand, Spencer did say that Microsoft doesn't have to release Bethesda titles on any other platform to make the Bethesda deal work out.
So what does this rather vague phrasing mean for Bethesda titles on other platforms? Well, while Xbox CFO Tim Stewart didn't make any announcements regarding Xbox exclusivity, he did have some rather interesting things to say about the matter, including the fact that Microsoft is keen to keep supporting cross-platform play.
So the CFO said, when we think about Bethesda, it's going to be the continuing to allow, I'll say allow, but continue to sell their games on the platforms that they exist on today, and we'll determine what that looks like over time and will change over time. The CFO goes on to say, I'm not making any announcements about exclusivity or something like that, but that model will change.
And he added by saying, Microsoft is a platform. We're one of the first to really support Minecraft, Roadblock, and Fortnite across platforms. So we highly encourage cross-platform play, simply from this landscape of if it's good for the gaming ecosystem, it's good for us, and the classic rising tide lifts all boats.
I had to look up, I was like, is Roadblock a game? Did he mean to say Roblox? I don't know what Roadblock is.
That is the quote.
There is a quote, says roadblock, and I was like, wait. So anyway, like Phil Spencer, the executive points out that in the long run, Microsoft doesn't have intentions to pull content from either Sony or Nintendo. He did state, however, that Microsoft wants Bethesda content to show up the best it can on Xbox platforms, also hinting at some form of timed exclusivity for Bethesda titles on Xbox.
So he says this, what we'll do in the long run is we don't have intentions of just pulling all of Bethesda's content out of Sony or Nintendo or otherwise. But what we want is that content in the long run to be either first or better or best or pick your differentiated experience on our platforms. We will want Bethesda content to show up the best as on our platforms.
Goes on to say, yes, that's not a point about being exclusive. That's not a point about we're being adjusting timing or content or roadmap. But if you think about something like Game Pass, if it shows up best in Game Pass, that's what we want to see. And we want to drive our Game Pass subscriber base through that Bethesda pipeline.
So again, this is how he finishes. So again, I'm not announcing pulling content from platforms one way or the other, but I suspect you'll continue to see us shift towards a first or better or best approach on our platforms.
Based on these quotes, Microsoft doesn't seem to go for the Xbox-only route for Bethesda titles, but is looking for a different approach instead, one that won't necessarily be taking away games from other platforms. I've got to just say as a side note, some of these quotes are surprisingly hard to understand. Like, I don't consider myself the best public speaker, but when reading some of these quotes, I'm like, what are they saying?
It's so funny because I think, you know, when they're in there speaking and knowing they're on record, there's those moments of like, oh, I said something maybe a little bit too much. I'm just going to immediately cut off the sentence and add, you know, a different part to it. So yeah, when you read it, you're like, what happened? Like, why did he just jump right into this? But I do want to point out, we have kind of an experience of this, especially on a really popular title like Call of Duty. Mm-hmm. Call of Duty has features that are exclusive to one console for a time period. This just might become the nature of, if you want this experience, like, let's say, and I'm just using that as an example, this specific zombies map, you can't play it without being on the Xbox in order to play it. Just replace, you know, Bethesda with Activision and, you know, maybe the next Fallout with Call of Duty in that example. Right,
and we've kind of seen that to an extent, you know, some features are behind, you know, certain walled gardens, you know, such as, I think it was Spider-Man was only in the PS5 Marvel's Avengers, something like that, or, you know, certain content is kind of gated. I kind of like PlayStation's approach with like Death Stranding, where it's going to be a PlayStation exclusive, but like a year later it's going to come out on PC. So if you want to wait for PC, you know, it's no big deal. And I feel like it kind of also has a second, you know, wave of hype around those games. You know, especially when Horizon Zero Dawn came out on PC, I feel like a lot of people are playing it, a lot of people are streaming it. You know, it opens up, you know, a new wave of marketing, you know, and a new wave of players. I could see that kind of being the future for Microsoft here. It also seems like they're not they're putting all their new Xbox titles also on PC. So I think I'm not really worried about if they're even going to be like exclusive moving forwards anyway, because if I have a console or a PC, I'm still going to be able to play it.
Yeah, there's that whole like optimized experience. Like it's optimized for this system, but you can play it. Like I think a thought process that comes to mind is when I think virtual reality, the best way to play Half-Life Alyx is on the Valve Index.
Right.
But you can still have the Half-Life Alyx experience with your Oculus Quest, which I have. And it was still a great experience. But there's many features I don't get to experience because I don't have that specific headset. So I think that's the way to start looking at this acquisition. It's great because it's for those individuals who are like, I got to play the next Skyrim or, you know, Elder Scrolls 6 when it drops, and I'm afraid that I now have a PS5 and I'm not going to be able to do that. Oh, no, you are. And you're going to still get your experience, but don't expect to get everything that the Xbox and PC Games Pass experience might be for that particular title.
That's a great point. You know, that reminds me of right now, I've been playing Resident Evil Revelations on my Switch, and usually I play all Resident Evil things on PC, mouse and keyboard. You know, I want my game to be, you know, on point, my aim to be on point. But like, if I'm not going to play the game on PC right now, I'd kind of prefer, you know, playing it on the Switch. And I know it's not the full Resident Evil experience, and I'm kind of just playing it on easy mode, just like walking through it, but I still enjoy it, you know, and it's still a good experience for me. So I could see that, you know, making it available for other platforms, and you know it's not going to be the best optimized experience, but you know it's still available if you want to do that. If you just want to play Resident Evil before you go to sleep because it's not going to give you nightmares for some reason. Right.
No, I'm very encouraged by this talk and recognizing them saying what I think all of us were afraid of was, well, does that mean now I have to go and own this separate console to be able to have this, you know, this gaming experience? And so this is great that they've kind of cleared up the air on this. This was a huge concern. Even Phil Spencer didn't really address this to this detail. So hearing the CFO come out and say these things, what I don't want to hear is any of these statements getting retracted. That's what I don't want to hear, because I feel like if anyone comes out and is like, maybe Stuart said some things he shouldn't have said, it's going to be like, they're going to do it. We got to get prepared. They're going to do it. That
is so true. I hope they're not retracted. We've kind of seen that, you know, for this whole console launch. It's like, we said this thing. Now that's not happening, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And they're like, I hope that like this is really, you know, their vision. It seems like they are leaving it pretty open-ended on purpose, you know, just to keep their options open. They don't have to commit to anything right now. I mean, the acquisition just happened, or is still technically like in the process.
They did say it might be a couple years before this goes into full effect. But many people were like, well, how soon are you guys going to delay the Elder Scrolls 6 and release your StarCraft later on, you know, or whatever the
Starfield, I think.
Starfield, whatever.
Who knows?
The game that no one's going to play. You know, so yeah, my energy on this whole thing is shifted in a more positive, neutral positive position.
Neutral positive. We'll see what the future holds. You know, hopefully we're all going to be able to play the Bethesda games we may know and love. Hopefully not hate, you know, as this acquisition moves forward. And we'll see, you know, if Microsoft is going to pull out all the stops here and, you know, make Bethesda a slam dunk sort of company.
And circling around on the other side of the aisle when we talk next gen and talk about what's going on, Sony has recently released their PlayStation 5 system update, which is 20.02.022500. And we have some details to break that down.
So this new update is 866 megabytes for their new PS5 console, and like many, many other updates to the PS4, this one just improves system performance. So we've got some patch notes captured for you, you know, just to list off.
So normally there wouldn't be nothing to write home about, but those who have already got their hands on the console in North America, Japan, Australia, and some other territories have been reporting a number of problems.
There seems to be an issue with the PlayStation 5 rest mode. The mode allows you to put the console to sleep and instantly pick up where you left off, the same as it does on the PS4. Insomniac have confirmed that there is definitely an issue if you put the PS5 in rest mode when playing Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales and the remastered original Spider-Man game. There are also multiple reports of Godfall suffering from the same problem.
Users have been hit by the problem, which is that they have been forced to rebuild their PlayStation 5 database, and most find that has worked. However, there is a small number of gamers who found that the rebuild fails and bricks their console.
There are also reports of PS5s crashing at various points and throwing up the error code CE1082551. A rather generic something went wrong with this game or app. Sony have yet to make any official comment on this, but at Ask PlayStation on Twitter is DMing individuals with advice, so best to try to look around for PlayStation, support online if you have that problem.
And then there's the issue with what versions of cross-gen games the console has downloaded, with games such as Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War defaulting, like the story we talked about previously, to the PS4 version, then being unable to install the PS5 version. And the only known fix there has been to that is, perform a full system reset. Hopefully this new update will be fixing those problems so we can see that very soon, and I can feel safe to turn my PS5 on again.
I've also just got to read off some tweets from Caljeet, who is a Twitch streamer. I couldn't find an article, backing up her claims, but she tweeted 5 hours ago, PS5 just forced an update and I lost the past 6 hours of Demon's Souls grinding. I give up on 2020. She also says, wow, this would have been great to know before PS5 forced an update and deleted everything instantly. Why on earth is this a thing? Forcing users to buy premium just to save their game data is the most repulsive thing I've seen in gaming. So I haven't heard anything about having to buy premium to save a game. Do you know anything about this?
I haven't either. I'm not too sure. Maybe Plus is what's being referred to. I don't know. A premium, maybe saying a premium, like you need the PlayStation Plus in order to do that because there might be cloud saving. But the person's rightfully upset. You download this update that's a forced update and then it corrupts your save file. No, that's no good.
It's just awful. And I mean, this is kind of a big deal, at least to me, because it's very easy for me to stop playing a game for some reason. I know I was playing the Modern Warfare campaign, and then Zand actually accidentally played the campaign on my account and progressed the story. And instead of restarting the beginning and just recovering that 1 hour I'd already gotten in, I was just I don't know, I'll get back to this later. Not Zand's fault, but the game didn't let me go back to that save point, and I was just whatever. And I literally haven't gone back to the campaign since, even though it's so minor. But even having to redo an hour of gameplay for me, I'm just I don't know, fam.
Yeah, fam, I don't know. I gotta admit too, because Philip is saying there, the most it seems a little dramatic, and Kai threw in, because this is the thought I was thinking. With a game like Demon's Souls, 6 hours is a big deal, because 6 hours is 6 hours of punishment. And you making the little bit of progress that you do in a game like that, where 6 hours later, you're like, okay, I need a breather, I need to reflect, I need to sit down and know if I want to go back in and do this again.
Totally, yeah. I think that, I don't know what this is for PS Plus. Maybe there's going to be an article out soon, but I do think if you have to pay for PS Plus to save your game data, I would think that's pretty predatory, and I would agree that's disgusting. Maybe not the most disgusting thing in gaming, but definitely way up there. Yeah,
it's high. I'm trying to think of where I've seen that, so I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious to look further into that, because I don't know of that being true on my end. I'm not saying that it's not, of course, but I'm just, in my own anecdotal experience, I haven't seen that.
I haven't heard of it anywhere else. Yeah. Absolutely. This is, I guess this just adds credence to you, Marrone and Kai in the chat, not really playing your PS5s, because if you put 6 hours into Demon's Souls, that might have been totally gone. So,
and that's the one I was thinking about picking up. I was like, maybe I'll get that instead of Miles Morales. But then at the same time, it's but do I want to jump into Miles Morales, have this rest issue go down, my files don't repair, and then I have to start over and reset. So I'm just in that, it's just in that position of being okay, I think I mentally prepared myself for managing my expectations, recognizing there's probably going to be a lot of bugs. Not to this extent, but it does make sense when we reflect on everything that's led to this moment.
Right.
That some areas of the QA department might have not been discovered until more people essentially started not being paid to QA their own consoles.
Totally, honestly, and this kind of rest mode was pretty much the only way I play my Switch. I pretty much never turn off my Switch. I never close a game. I just put it into rest mode and pick it back up. And so it sounds really minor, but if I did put it into rest mode, especially after maybe defeating a big boss, but didn't quite get to the next autosave checkpoint or whatever, to have to go back and redo that does really suck and does really, interfere.
It does. And yes, Ray, fix your bugs, Sony. Come on. hop on it. It does seem like they're on it. I think they are well aware of these complaints and well aware of if this is going to be a major issue. They have addressed it. They're not dismissing it. So that's a good sign at the very least. I just think all of us were like, next gen, it's 2020. No, this shouldn't be a release. This shouldn't be happening. Oh, it is.
Right? We were like, yo, like next gen, it's here. We're ready. The companies are ready. We're ready. And it's like, nope, we are stumbling through this.
We weren't ready.
No, they weren't. But maybe we'll get there. Hopefully we'll get there soon.
Yes. Well, what is soon to happen is something we did report on when this happened a while back, which was the fact that PUBG Mobile was no longer available in India. But now the plans to relaunch in India with a new game and a $100 million investment has emerged.
If anyone's interested in international relations, this is a nice crossover of gaming and international relations happening here. So the PUBG Corporation says it plans to launch a new PUBG Mobile game in India after being banned in the country in September due to the mobile app's links to China's Tencent. At the time of its ban, the game was India's top downloaded title with some 50 million users.
So the South Korean developer said it would create a new Indian subsidiary to oversee the title and that the game would maximize data security and cater to local preferences. The company has also pledged to invest $100 million in the Indian gaming, esports, entertainment, and IT industries, though it offered no date for when the game might actually launch.
The news reported by TechCrunch, NDTV, and others is significant for India's digital ecosystem, suggesting a possible way back for apps and games banned from the country due to security concerns. Along with PUBG Mobile, which was developed by Chinese tech giant Tencent, India also banned TikTok, WeChat, and other Chinese apps. The government cited complaints it received about such apps stealing and surreptitiously transmitting users' data in an unauthorized manner to servers, which have locations outside India.
By cutting ties with Tencent and localizing development and data storage for PUBG Mobile, the PUBG Corporation might be able to mollify India's digital regulators. It would be a significant boost for the corporation's revenues, given that PUBG Mobile was India's top-grossing game in the country around the time of its ban. And earlier this month, it was announced that PUBG Mobile would be hosted on Microsoft's cloud service.
The PUBG Corporation did note, though, that the relaunched game would have certain elements customized for Indian gamers. These include characters starting fully clothed, green liquid replacing blood, and framing the game as taking place in a virtual simulation training ground, not in real life. So there will also be limits on how long players can use the game to promote healthy gameplay habits for younger players, said the company. Video game analyst Daniel Ahmad noted on Twitter that these were all changes made in the Chinese version of the game developed by Tencent.
I think this would be great for the company to get those sales back like they had it. I also just recognize that there is a an aspect here that feels like limitation, but when a country is set in its way of handling something like we don't want to have involvement from something that we deem potentially an invasion of privacy to our citizens, that right is upon that country to exercise what it feels it's necessary to protect their people.
I think it's so interesting to see, how different cultural norms, play out in these games. I think it was the Korean version of PUBG. I was trying to look it up. I can't find it. But instead of dying, when you run out of health, your character kneels and opens their case of equipment for you. And it's just kind of wholesome and super cheesy. And you're like, oh yeah, that's a non-violent way to die in this game. I think it's so, I guess telling how it's oh, the characters start fully clothed. You can't have anyone starting off in their underwear. No one's in underwear here. It's also, I guess, refreshing to touch on news like this because I think a lot of gamers, especially, who are US focused, have been kind of forgetting about PUBG, being like, oh, PUBG's not popular anymore. Yeah. PUBG Mobile is massive, India's top game. Crossfire is huge in Korea. Some of these mobile games are really, really, really massive, and to just not talk about them, I think, is a huge oversight. This also affects, a lot of people and creators in India itself. I was talking to my friend's roommate who's Indian, and he was saying that the ban of TikTok also cut off, a big career opportunity for a lot of people. Like, for example, a lot of, like singers would get discovered through TikTok, or a lot of comedians, or, people just working, whatever low minimum wage job or whatever could have a route to a better life, through TikTok. And with TikTok gone, it's kind of like, well, what now? Which I thought was very interesting on how it might just sound like, oh, whatever, TikTok's a dumb social app, but it really can change people's lives.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's that moment of, and I recognize the concern too, like the limiting the playtime thing. I think that's maybe like an initial feature that will be there and then taken away at a later point. I don't know. I think that is an odd choice.
Yeah.
I'm curious its purpose and what does it serve. It's good that we're like back into a place where that community, because I'm sure there's a lot of players over in India who are like, I played this game and I miss it and I don't play it because I don't want to feel like my privacy and my personal information is in jeopardy. But at the same time, there might be those who feel a little more, liberal to that choice of going, I'm willing to take that risk in order to play this game if that risk is actually a real one.
And I wonder how much the playtime actually makes people healthier. We kind of talked about how whenever there's a timer in games, it's very stressful. And I feel like if I knew like you only have 2 hours to play League of Legends, I'd be like, oh, like people are like leaving the lobby and like they forfeited this game and it wasn't even a real game. Like I feel like it kind of takes away from it. I understand, the end result is to get people going outside and being more physical. But I wonder if people are just going to make like multiple accounts, or if they have multiple phones to just like after an hour just switch over to another one anyway. That's
true. What are the workarounds there that are probably existing already in order to adhere that? I hope there's some pushback on that rule. It's such a weird one to this. It makes sense to like bring it back. It's a new game. It doesn't have the features that upset your country, and it won't have any of the aspects that we had with the one we specifically developed that Tencent was involved in on. So it's not like Tencent's not going to make any money off of their industry. It's just that the areas that are of concern for privacy are being redone because they're bringing out this new game. They also didn't indicate when. So I do want to take into the mindset, it probably be a really interesting conversation as this moves forward, to how in which this new PUBG Mobile will behave, will play, and what the fine print will say surrounding it.
And it's also interesting to see kind of, the role that like government and like laws take on, in video games, because I feel like in the US it's generally been a bit of a free-for-all. I mean, there's definitely like limitations or banned games, or I feel like platforms themselves kind of have taken it on themselves. Like on Twitch, there's a list of games that you can't play because they're too like obscene or too gory or whatever. But to just have a government be like, you or this game can't be played for more than this time, that's kind of it. They've put that, or I don't know if it was technically the Indian government or if PUBG just kind of took this on themselves here. But talking about loot boxes and gaming, and it seems like it's so hard to get that under control, whereas other companies might be like, you can't even play this game for more than X amount of time.
Yeah, there's I don't know, these gates that are starting to present themselves that feel unnecessary, but to someone else are necessary, and this is that kind of whole realm of what may not be the way you might handle something may be the way that someone else handles something. And the best thing that a business can do is take on the initiative to find a way to cater to those needs, because there is a customer base. You're talking 50 million users at one point. And that's still like a really huge economical impact on their industry, but also just on the local communities that are playing these games. Because you got to think, if a lot of them are playing these games, whether they might jump over to the cloud version when it becomes available, or that they just have these maybe these communities that get together obviously prior to the pandemic, if they don't have that means of connection anymore, that can affect the economy in its own, it can have its ripple effects on the economy in its own way that aren't directly tied to the game developers making a profit. That's
so true. There's a lot of like externalities or, other effects of this. It's not, games don't exist, in a vacuum. I'm sure this has a lot of, different repercussions for different industries. As we get to the end of the show here, were our mugs guessed?
I don't think mine was. I want to ask. I know I saw one and I was like, that's close, but I don't want to say it's close because then it'll spoil it. But did anybody say lemon water for Marrone? Because I don't think they did. Ooh. I know lemonade was mentioned, but I didn't see lemon water.
And for me, I did a big curveball. You kind of saw the color at the beginning, but this is kale soup. So
kale soup.
I think it was Megan joked about like chicken soup or something the other day. And I was like, I'm gonna put some soup in here. We're gonna do it.
What else was funny too was the guess that technically is right, but it doesn't serve a point. Was the I know what you've got, liquids.
Oh,
I forgot who put that in the chat, but I was like, oh, it's pretty spot on. It's pretty spot on. I like it.
You got kind of close, not quite there.
But that does bring us to the end of the Daily Gaming News Hour for today, November 17th, 2020. Thank you all so much for being here with us and going through another hour of news happening in the gaming industry.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is a ton of fun. Please feel free to, hit us up, talk about the news, in our own streams. Are you streaming later today, Marrone?
I don't know. I've got a lot going on. Next weekend we start filming. So I'm going to try to get in and stream. I want to. I've got to get the capture card going to do the PlayStation 5 stream, but I just, like today, I'm still nervous turning that thing on. So I'm torn, but I want to get around to streaming and hanging out with everybody.
And I'm going to be live in about half an hour. Going to have some guests on my stream. It's already dark outside. It's 5 p.m. where I am. It was weird starting the news at 4 p.m. I'm like, wow, I had the whole day ahead of me, before we even started. So I'll see some of y'all later today.
Definitely hop on. Say what's up to Kaisa in her stream. Say what's up to her guests. Treat her like the way we know the DGN family treats everyone else. But thank you again so much for the likes, the follows, the donations, the bits, the gifting of subs, all the activity that happens here in the stream. We appreciate you all so very, very much. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us.
Thank you so much for joining us. You can also submit anything to our mailbag, questions, suggestions, topics, people you want us to interview. I think it's just mailbag, not mailbags. But for today's Daily Gaming News on November 17th, I am Kaisa.
I am Marrone. We will see you all tomorrow.